Good time of day, guys. My name is Godzi, and welcome back to another episode of Higurashi When They Cry, Ch.5 Meakashi. Last episode was over a goddamn week ago. Sorry about that. Weather's been going like up and down recently, and fucking with my head makes it hard to focus on reading. So, yeah, weird thing to, but whatever. Last episode, I actively have to remember what happened. Oh, right, yeah. Yeah, that happened. Shion killed Satsuko and then regretted it. That's the blunt way of putting it, because it felt like much more happened last episode. But generally, yeah, that's what happened. Anyways, this could potentially be the finale, although I doubt it. Because I remembered after, a few days after recording last episode, about the alternate ending that I was told about, like the what-if scenario, which is relatively extensive, and I was told it should fit in an episode. So, yeah, we probably have at least 2 episodes left then, assuming we get through that this episode, but thing is, I don't know where it is, and I don't know how long it'll be until we get there. So, yeah. Either way, before we get into this, we're going to have our last go discussion, for now, I guess. We might have more in the future, but we'll have to see. This is our last one based on, a newly aired episode, but I didn't frickin' record an episode since last episode, so that means that, well, yeah, we've got 2 episodes to discuss, although episode 23, not too much to say, really. Episode 24, a bit more. So, we're going into ghost spoilers now. If you don't want ghost spoilers, then go mute your headphones and come back when I pull down the menu. Alright, so, my thoughts on episode 23 are kind of diverging, as far as, like, how much thought I put into the episode, because on one hand, it doesn't feel like a very complicated episode. It just, like, all my thoughts on the episode at face value are, I like this. I like seeing Teppei being redeemed a bit. Because I'd assume in that world that we saw in episode 23, Teppei hadn't done anything for like a year. So like the stuff he does in Tatari-Goroshi and Mina-Goroshi, he hadn't done, but it had still been done to Satsuko. So it's very interesting seeing that, because it's like abuse is abuse regardless. If you abuse someone and they react negatively to you, that should make sense in your head, like, oh yeah, I abused them, so it makes sense. But Satsuko's trauma runs much deeper. Well, again, I actually forgot that Satsuko wasn't from Tatari-Goroshi or Mina-Goroshi, so never mind. I guess that isn't relevant, so still the same shit regardless. But it's interesting seeing him get redeemed, so I'm wondering where they're gonna go with it. I have an idea, especially after the beginning of episode 24, with Aowa telling Satsuko, like, if he's gonna be a problem for her, and she's just like, nah, I'll make the best use of him that I can. So I'm assuming whatever the fuck actually happens to Keiichi and Tatari with Teppei, that's something Satsuko did. So, yeah, very interesting indeed. I might have to look back through some of the earlier episodes of Tatari, because I can't remember if we even see Teppei at that point. If he's even abusing her at all in that arc, maybe? And it might just be purely, like, happy-go-lucky fun times, and Satsuko's just faking everything to fuck with Rika. But I don't know. I'll have to go back and check. But overall, my thoughts on episode 23 are pretty light. They're just like, yeah, this is nice. Kind of a feel-good-ish episode after a lot of bad things happening, especially after Satsuko, killing herself repeatedly. Either the episode before or a few episodes before then. But, yeah, it was a nice episode. On the other hand, it's making me think. Because after episode 24, too, I guess I can tie this in, the only characters who we see having this effect that Satoko's bringing on them from looping are Teppei and Takano. So I tried to think for a second. I was like, because after episode 23, I started forming a crack theory in my head about something which I'm not fully sure if I'm going to mention it here. I might just leave it. Like, I might say one thing and to allude to what I'm thinking of, but I'm not going to say it yet. But seeing Teppei being affected by Satoko looping was getting me thinking like, what if blah 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 blah, I'm not saying shit yet, but after episode 24, like a little into it, where we get that scene with Takano, kind of having the same effects that Teppei was having, I was thinking to myself like, wow, I guess my crack theory's wrong, wait. So, yeah, reason being, I guess this is the hint I'll give. How do I word this, though, so it's vague enough? Teppei and Takano being affected by Satoko makes sense. Because from what I can gather about Takano and Satoko's relation, they may be one and the same, but it's a matter of, like, who was first, you know? I would venture to guess that Takano was? That's my best guess? This isn't part of my hint, but what I'm guessing is that Takano is, like, the first stage, and the end stage is Lambda Delta. My reason for saying that is, first off, it wouldn't make sense for Satoko to be the first stage, since it seems like with what we're getting in Higurashi Go, and the newly announced Sotsu, I'll talk more about that later, though. It seems like Satoko's going down the path of becoming Lambda Delta. And so I don't know why Lambda Delta would then eventually become Takano. Because if Satoko is first and then turns into Lambda Delta, how the fuck does Lambda Delta eventually turn back into Takano? I think it makes more sense for it to be Takano, and my rationale with this is we have Takano, and then eventually Takano turns into Veer, I'm guessing. My reasoning for that, it's probably something that'll happen in Sotsu, which is why I feel like it's important for me to read all of Kekkonia that exists right now, which I'm not very far. I'm still not through any more than one of watching back my videos, so that's something. But I'll be sure to be done with it by the time Sotsu starts airing in, I'm guessing, July. Or, well, I would have to assume it's July due to the 7/2021 in it, unless I'm misremembering. It should be July. Correct me if I'm wrong, though. If it's spring, then shit, I've really got to speed through Kekkonia. That or just take my time with it and pace it alongside Higurashi, but we'll see. Regardless, though, something in Sotsu probably happens to Takano that turns her into Veer. I realize how this kind of sounds, but eventually, because since Kekkonia is an unfinished story so far, something probably happens in Kekkonia, and this is probably why Go and Sotsu are happening before further parts of Kekkonia happen. Veer, I don't fully remember everything she does, but she probably does something that eventually transports her back in time as a similar but different person in, I guess, a manufactured family with the Hojos as Satoko. Unless Satoko didn't exist in the very, very first timeline, whatever that would be. But then from there it creates conflicting timelines where Satoko and Takano exist at the same time. And then we get Go, and Sotsu, and eventually Satoko turns into Lambda Delta. I don't know if that means Lambda eventually turns into the Gestress, but I don't know. It depends on some other things regarding Kekkonia, such as, like, the identity of those 3 masked people. Which I guess the fat one could technically be Teppei at this point, right? I was leaning more towards Oishi based on his build this whole time. If they're even previous When They Cry characters, but that's besides the point. It's weird regardless, so I suppose it sounds all confusing, because it's like, we have Takano in Higurashi, who eventually becomes Veer in Kekkonia, who goes back in time to become Satoko in Higurashi, who exists at the same time as her former self but has no memory of it, and then Go happens and becomes Lambda Delta in Umineko, which is somehow skipped over by Takano, becoming Veer, but I guess, even though Umineko's in the middle of the two, it does not mean Takano has to go through Umineko to get to Kekkonia. And then, potentially, Lambda eventually becomes, the Gestress in Kekkonia. So it kind of feels conflicting, in a way, how the same character can exist in 2 different forms at the same time, but with no memory of one being the other. It kind of feels like, if anyone's ever seen that, horribly fourth wall breaking Goofy comic where he steals a hat from himself in another panel and breaks the rules of reality, that's how I kind of feel describing my theory here. But still, this isn't my crack theory, by the way. This is just something that I think is probably going on. This is more me shooting into the void, you know? Because I could be wrong. It could be that Satoko was first and then eventually becomes Takano, but I think it makes more sense for Satoko as a wiser being than Takano to be affected by Satoko looping through time. That's a very rambly explanation for what I'm trying to get at. So anyways, my hint for my crack theory. So, since Takano and Satoko are basically the same person, so it makes sense for Takano to be affected by Satoko, Teppei being affected by Satoko, he's a family member of hers. He's not the same person. He's just a close family member. So then, how does this apply to Rika? Or does it? That's all I'll say. That is all I'll say. But I guess I can say a little bit more, to feed any curiosity about what the fuck's going on in my messed up brain. Teppei is to Satoko as Who is to Rika. That's more what I'm thinking. And looking at the characters that exist in Higurashi, you would think, there's not a character in Higurashi who fits this. So yeah, who does then? And I suppose I can say one more thing, to give a little bit of an inkling of an idea. Why does Rika go to St. Lucia's? Why the fuck does she go to St. Lucia's? What gets her looking at St. Lucia's and thinking, I'm gonna go there, especially since she does know, I would assume, what happens to Shion there, and how Shion fucking hates it there. It's doubtful that it's just Rika being like, well, that's because Shion's, you know, a bit wackadoo, so I think I'll fit in there more, and I'm just making Satoko tag along because I don't fucking know. So why does she go to St. Lucia's? And what relevance does St. Lucia's have to other people? That's where I'll stop with that. Anyways, let's talk about Sotsu then. My god, this is what I thought we would eventually get in Go. From what I've only watched the PV once and I haven't really looked at it deeply, but after the ending that we got to Go, with it more or less being confirmed, Satoko stole a vial of Hinamizawa syndrome, or H173, I guess is the more proper term to call it, because calling it a vial of a disease is, it just doesn't sound grammatically correct, but Yeah, she steals a vial of H173, which is presumably what also causes Takano and Tomitake to escape Hinamizawa. If we can assume that that's a constant through the mini-arcs in Nekodamashi. So then Satoko uses this vial to then cause the tragedies that happen in Onidamashi through the fucking rapid-fire episode in Nekodamashi, which I think was episode 14, but I cannot fully remember. No, it definitely was, yeah. So, yeah, she's who fucked up Rena, and then Mion, and then Oishi, possibly Teppei also, but I sort of doubt it. And then, Akasaka, Akane, Kimiyoshi, Keiichi, and then herself, question mark? I don't know, but, yeah. Then there's also the sword, or the blade that Hanyu tells Rika about. That confuses me, too. I'm wondering how that's gonna play in to Sotsu, but, yeah. Anyways, what I'm thinking Sotsu's gonna be, after having seen the PV once, is it's going to be Go! Again! But behind the scenes. Sort of. Like, because there's definitely a lot of shit that happened behind the scenes in, frickin' Go. Like, obviously, after the revelations we've had in Go, there's clearly been stuff that happened in, Onidamashi that led to, what happened in Onidamashi that we just didn't see. We don't have all the answers to Onidamashi, or especially Watanagashi, and especially Tataridamashi. The Nekodamashi ones I don't think matter as much. It's more just Rika's cycle of torment. Like, we can assume that we're probably not going to get deep dives into those arcs. It's just Akasaka comes to town. Satoko's like, alright, he's my target this time. I'm going to have him kill Rika and do all this shit. Hey, Akasaka, poke. And then so on and so forth with Akane, Kimiyoshi, and Keiichi. So, yeah. But I'm assuming we'll probably start off Sotsu, assuming it's 24 episodes again, but even if it's 12, it could probably still fit into this. They'll either be mini-arcs, or like whole arcs, or maybe just one entire arc, showing what happens behind the scenes in Onidamashi, Watanagashi, and Tataridamashi, from Satoko's perspective. The reason I think this is because we saw a lot of creepy Rena in there. And that makes me think, well, the only time she was doing that in Go was in Onidamashi. So, yeah, I think that means we're going back to Onidamashi and we're finally gonna catch up to what happens in Nekodamashi. So, at the end of Nekodamashi. So, yeah, I don't know if they'll actually run through all three of those arcs again. Probably paced a little bit faster, because really, Onidamashi they could probably cover in like 2 episodes with how little technically happens there. Because like all that really happens is it's just Onikakushi, except at some point Satoko injects Rena with Hinamizawa syndrome, and Mion doesn't have a presence in it at all, probably because of Rena having Hinamizawa syndrome and, I don't know, distrusting people, maybe. I haven't read Sumi Horoboshi yet, so I don't recall all of Rena's motives. There's just protecting her father, and that's it. But that does make me wonder, though, why the fucking Onidamashi does Satoko choose Rena, and then she goes after Keiichi? Like, because from what we've seen, the only constant with the rest of those arcs is that the person who has Hinamizawa syndrome kills Rika. Just, they do. That's all. So yeah, Watanagashi. Presumably at this point, Mion is the one that killed, Rika. It is possible that Satoko did, and I thought that she did for a while, because of that first episode of Nekodamashi, where, Mion unlocks the outhouse thinking that Rika could be in there, but that's besides the point. I just personally think that it makes most sense that Mion did at this point. But I guess we'll probably see in Sotsu when it airs in July. So now I'm at a crossroads with what I want to do with this series. Because since we're taking a break from Go, I'm debating on whether or not I want to take a short break after Meakashi before I jump into Sumihoroboshi. So then, if Sotsu lasts beyond me finishing Matsuribayashi, then I guess I'd have to make separate videos talking about it, but, like, I could do that anyways. Like, I could just keep Go entirely out of my Higurashi Let's Play at this point, and just make separate videos discussing it, but I don't know. Well, I guess I'll play it by ear, because I am excited for Sumihoroboshi. How I'm excited to continue this series in general, but I'm torn. So, yeah, that's really all I have to say about Go and Sotsu, and it might be all I have to say until July, unless I think of other things to say, or more to support my crack theory, because there was nothing in episode 24 that really helped my theory at all. So, yeah. Regardless, let's jump back in. Welcome back, guys. That was a lot of talking. Time for more lots of talking. It took them a long time to come for me. I had to wait until the following morning. I opened the gate without checking who was ringing the doorbell. I didn't even care who it was. If it was the police, that'd be fine with me. If it was Kei-chan, could he defeat me? Keiichi and Rena were there. Oh, Mion voice, right? Well, this is unusual. Aren't you two going to school? We stayed home today. Kei-chan is one thing, but you too, Rena? You two are such troublemakers. I laughed. Well, let's not just stand here. Come on in. I didn't think Rena would come. I thought it would be either the police or Kei-chan alone. I'll try tricking Kei-chan into coming with me to the underground storehouse. Rena, why don't you try to figure out what I'm attempting to do and stop me? You too, Kei-chan. If you figured out I was Shion, why don't you try to figure out the rest? I will act like a demon. I will struggle until the very last moment. So don't hold back. Please don't hesitate to kill a filthy demon like me. Mion, first, I have something to apologize for. You do? What for? Well, on the night of Watanagashi, the ritual storehouse behind the shrine, I went in there. I didn't expect this to start with an apology. Okay, so he admitted his sin of entering the ritual storehouse. I guess that was manly of him. I don't even care if the storehouse is forbidden anymore. Whatever. That rule came from those who believed it was even a sacred place at all. Mion, you called Rika-chan and Satoko the day before last, didn't you? I don't remember doing so. If you have a reason to think so, could you let me hear it? It was evening, before dinner time. Rika-chan should have come here, bringing a big bottle of soy sauce, to have you share some with her. Rena spoke with confidence. She wasn't even trying to gauge my reaction. She was simply telling me the truth. That cleverness was very pleasant to see. Why do you think that? It's not hard to understand. Mi-chan, you saw it too, didn't you? Rika-chan's room. There was chilled tofu, but no soy sauce. Plus, the big bottle of soy sauce that should have been under the sink was nowhere to be found. What? Is that why she would have come here? Rena sure is sharp. I tried to beat around the bush, but she was confident in her conclusions. She was cornering me. She was doing such a great job, too. It really put me at ease. Okay, demon. Rena knows what she's talking about. What kind of excuse are you going to come up with now? It's a long explanation, so I'll get to the point. The contents of that refrigerator provided a vivid account of what she said over the phone when you lured her out. There it is. This game is over. Rena, I was right about you. I don't like you. You really are just too sharp. Shion is so obtuse that she never even recognized this side of you. That's... I had no idea I had such an incredible detective right next to me the whole time. I can't believe you'd figure out everything, down to the phone conversation, just from what was inside the fridge. You've got me there. You've got me. You've got me. I laughed like crazy. I laughed because I was having so much fun. I sensed the poison inside of my stomach dissipating and felt free and refreshed. Mion, the police have suspected you for a long time now. Oishi-san's officers have had the house under observation so that they could break in at any time. Kei-chan was threatening me. He was telling me I couldn't run or resist, so I should just surrender and accept my fate. You aren't doing that intensely enough, Kei-chan. Shouldn't you grab my collar and knock me to the ground? Today is the day I'm prepared to die. After that, they went easy, because they just wanted to know the reason why Mion committed such crimes. You all are being too lenient about this. I'm a demon. I'm a murderer. Are you saying that if you can understand the reasoning, murder is okay? A demon is a demon. A murderer is a murderer. Whether their motive is to have fun, to live, or to take revenge, that makes no difference. Why do you even want to know that? Why don't you just tackle me and take me to the police? Look, there. The demon is trying to deceive you. It's a pleasure to meet you both. I am the successor of the Sonozaki family, Mion. Welcome to the Sonozaki family's house today. I'd like to greet you on behalf of our leader, Oreo. You seem to want to ask various questions. I'd like to answer everything as clearly as possible. I then told them about the strange events that had led to Onigafuchi village becoming Hinamizawa, which Takano-san had told me about before. About half of it was the truth, but the other half was completely made up. I just made it sound like it was only natural that their best friend committed such a gruesome crime. Keiichi and Rena were both overwhelmed by the history of Onigafuchi village, which was swallowed by this gloomy fate. Oh well, I guess I made it sound interesting enough. I'm sure they enjoyed hearing me tell the story. But you know, I'm the one who committed the incidents that happened in the present time. What was the point in listening to those old folktales? Are you thinking it will make your best friend's crime easier to swallow? You're just trying to satisfy yourselves. I'm a demon. I'm a murderer. I have sinned. These old folktales have nothing to do with the crimes I've committed. The way those two listened to me so intensely almost made it fun. I told them that people used to make canned human meat and conducted gruesome research during the war. I forgot about that shit. Those were things Takano-san told me. Hey, you two. Haven't you realized yet? Haven't you realized that what I'm talking about has nothing to do with what we're dealing with right now? You both look so serious. You two are such fools. So that Hinamizawa village might once more be like Onigafuchi village, so that we may again be a sacred existence, worthy of worship. That's the mission of those who inherit the demon of the Sonozaki main family. Those who inherit the demon? For generations, the Sonozaki family has had a custom of including the character for demon in the names of its successors. If you write out my name on your hand, it should appear plain as day. Keiichi tried to write Mion on his palm. Oh, she's right. The character for demon isn't there. Not only in my name either. The demon is engraved on my body as well. I stood up and made to show my bare back. Of course, I don't actually have a tattoo there. It's okay, Mi-chan. You don't need to show us, okay? Thank you. I laughed a little. Why would you even do that? Like, you can just say it and they'll probably take it at face value. They must really believe that I'm their best friend, Mion. My goodness. The demon is one already. They were doing so well at the beginning, too. I eventually sat back down after I finished telling my made-up tearjerker stories. It's your loss if you all shed any tears now. I looked at Keiichi. He wasn't crying, but he was overcome by emotion. I looked at Rena. Surprisingly, she still maintained an aggressive look, showing me her will to fight.
But Rika-chan and Satoko-chan, you killed them, didn't you, Mi-chan?
You're good, Rena. You know what I just told you isn't an excuse for murder. You usually act like such a goofball, but that's not how you really are. You sure are something. You're far sharper than Shion.
I'm not saying that it's okay if you killed other people. Regardless, Mi-chan, you killed Rika-chan and Satoko-chan.
I'm not trying to justify what I've done. I have a demon inside of me. The demon is in my name, in my body, and also in my soul. But the demon wasn't the one who killed them. I did. Shion Sonozaki did. Rika-chan and Satoko died because Mion wanted them dead. That will never change. You're right, Rena.
Come on, Rena. Try to figure out who I really am. You still believe Shion, my victim, is the real culprit. Poor Shion. I'm making Rena believe that you're responsible. That was it for Rena, though. She couldn't figure out I was Mion.
Please, turn yourself in.
Rena spoke to Mion.
We'll go with you. We'll never leave a friend by herself.
Crying children and Rena are the only things I can't beat.
Too bad, Rena. I've won.
I'm well aware of how serious my own crimes are. Even if they accept me turning myself in, I'll probably never be able to come back here. So, I'd like you to hear one last selfish request.
What is it?
30 minutes is fine. Just let me have some time alone with Kei-chan.
Eh? Keiichi looked startled to suddenly hear his name. You're so insensitive, Keiichi. That's what made my sister cry.
Keiichi-kun, is that okay with you? If you don't want to, then I won't make you.
She's right. It's okay if you don't want to. After all, I'm a demon. And Kei-chan is a bona fide human who moved here from somewhere else. For us to be compatible, as long as Oyashiro-sama doesn't exist to mediate, it simply isn't possible.
Keiichi hesitated a little. Come on, Kei-chan. Condemn me. Condemn me and tell me you never go. Sure. It's fine.
Thank you, fool.
I'd like to thank you too, Keiichi-kun.
Rena stood up. As promised, she made to leave.
It's fine, Rena. You can wait right here. I just want to go around the garden with Kei-chan. If you're bored, you can go to my room. You can read any manga you like. And if there aren't any volumes you want, you might as well take them.
I don't want to. Mi-chan's books belong to Mi-chan. Rena couldn't bring them back home with her so freely.
You're such a good kid. Only at times like this.
I took Rena's head and rubbed it like Satoshi-kun used to do to me.
Okay, let's go, Kei-chan.
The game was over. Too bad, Rena. At least this was more fun than if Kei-chan came alone. If he did, he could have asked me to run away with him after hearing my stories. Rena's eyes were like those of a judge. In those eyes, I sensed both affection and observance. I said 30 minutes, so she would probably only wait for 30 minutes. If I took even a second longer, she'd call Oishi. I'm a little disappointed. Rena still thinks I'm Mion. She didn't manage to see through me. I thought someone like her would see the demon in me. I guess I was wrong. Too bad. Keiichi followed me after putting his shoes on.
Can I hold your arm?
Such a humble request. I don't mind. I took Keiichi's arm. It was as warm as Satoshi-kun's. I felt a little bewildered.
Do you get kind of nervous with your arm through mine? You're not thinking, for example, that I'd suddenly put you in a world-class joint lock or anything?
You two say the same things. I don't think that. At all. He was remembering the time when I'd held his arm in town.
I think Shion liked you, Kei-chan. I see. I told him how my sister felt. Shion was with Satoshi-kun for a long time, but what they had was friendship. They never had anything more than that. That was why she fell in love with Keiichi. If I were in her position, I would also have fallen in love with him. If Shion was able to fall in love with him, then I could fall in love with him too. Keiichi smiled gently. I almost saw Satoshi-kun in that smile. The Keiichi I knew was worthless and superficial. I never realized he could smile like Satoshi-kun. Mion and Shion, you got along well, didn't you? Well, I wonder. Kei-chan, do you think your right hand and left hand get along? Huh? My right hand and left hand? I don't think you could describe them as getting along or not. That's how our relationship is. You can't measure it by how well we get along. We'd been together since we were born. We'd been living in this world as a pair. But I was Mion and she was Shion. Mion was treated specially, and I insisted on being her. Of course, that was unpleasant for Shion. Deciding to be fair, we switched places all the time. We were probably different from other identical twins. We didn't only like the same things or do things the same way. We even managed to share our knowledge and experiences. When we talked about our experiences, we could share them. As Mion and Shion, we shared everything. That was why each of us was both Mion and Shion at the same time. No, maybe Shion was the only one who thought that way. I was a little different than that. I was simply letting Shion be Mion once in a while. I was Mion, the successor to the Sonozaki family. I was supposed to be treated specially. I always thought that was my privilege. Just like everyone tried to distinguish between Mion and Shion, I also tried to distinguish between us. For example, one of your hands is dominant, so there will always be a better hand. If you only had one oven mitt, you would put it on your dominant hand without thinking, right? I think maybe it was like that for us. That doesn't mean, though, that anyone would be okay with losing their left hand. It's that kind of unexplainable relationship. I think that maybe you live too close together and just stop being able to see it, but I think that means you get along really well. I'm an only child, so the day before the festival, I was really jealous of when you and Shion were messing around with each other. I think you're jealous of something that doesn't exist. Yes, we twins used to have a lot of fun trading places with each other. But now that we have such distinctly different personalities, our resemblance only gets in the way. As an older sister, I felt I was mean for thinking that way. So as punishment, I became Shion. Who am I? I never had a solid identity in the first place. I was Mion, then I was Shion. I should have just accepted that. But something has changed. I don't even know if I'm Mion or Shion anymore. Had I really been stupid enough to hope that Renan would figure that out for me? Shion is still alive. Really? Keiichi looked into my eyes. I nodded quietly. Yeah. I've been thinking to give her the most horrible death of all, so I kept her locked up. I never did think of a good way to do it, though. This was a lie. I've already come up with ideas, and I've already begun to execute them. I dumped the hag into the well in front of Shion. I dumped Kimiyoshi and Rika in there. I even killed Satoko, too. And right now, I'm plotting to kill Keiichi, who Shion fell in love with. I am a demon. Any such gruesome act is simply pleasure to me. That's when I felt a warm hand rubbing my head. It wasn't Satoshi's hand, but Keiichi's. Keiichi and Satoshi-kun are totally different. Why did Shion fall in love with him? His rough hand didn't make me happy. That he understood my feelings was just my imagination. I wasn't happy, and it didn't feel good. It didn't. Come with me. I want you to see all of my sins. Although, Kei-chan, it might be the worst thing you've ever seen. I'm going to commit my final crime. I am going to let you see it. I am going to let Shion see it. When I do, are you still going to think I'm your best friend? Poor Shion. Kei-chan is going to die thinking it's you who's killing him. If you want to turn back, Now's your chance. I don't know what impression you have of Shion Sonozaki, but it will surely change once you go inside.
It'll never change. I'll say it as many times as I need to. Shion Sonozaki is the best friend I could ever have. You are such a fool. You don't sound cool at all. I don't understand human feelings because I'm now a demon, but I think I can understand why she loves you. I opened the iron door to the underground storehouse and beckoned Keiichi inside. Come on, Keiichi. This is obviously a trap, don't you see? This basement is transparently suspicious. Don't you think you should run to the police? But Keiichi was reckless. He swallowed, then stepped inside. You really are a fool. We went down the stairs to the basement, and I let him into the torture room. Everyone is shocked their first time visiting this room. I used to be that way. Of course, Keiichi looked surprised too, but he was trying not to show it. Obviously, he wanted to express his shock at seeing this horrifying room, but he also knew that if he voiced that shock, that he would be rejecting his best friend, who was trying to confess her sins to him. So he did everything he could to stifle his surprise. According to something a family head from a long time ago wrote, blood splatter has impact, despite the fact that it doesn't tax the sacrifice. Watanagashi was meant as a deterrent, after all. My ancestors thought up all different kinds of showy torture. That's a space for the audience. Watanagashi is a deterrent, after all. It wouldn't make sense if there were no guests. Keiichi smiled quietly as he listened to me. No matter what cruelty came out of my mouth, he would embrace me. Was this really the superficial Keiichi Maebara I knew? Right here is where I killed everyone. There were no spectators to watch me, but I held a Watanagashi of my own. Well, perhaps there was one spectator. Huh? A spectator? Me. I, the demon, was watching the entire time Mion held the ceremony. I started to laugh. How many hints do you need, Keiichi? When are you going to figure out I'm not really your best friend? Come on, hurry up. You're running out of time. The game is almost over. This was a game. This was a game of murder. I had killed people, using my revenge for Satoshi-kun as an excuse. The demon was trying to capture Keiichi and kill him before Mion's eyes. But Keiichi had a chance. If he figured out I wasn't his best friend, then he'd win. If not, he was out. When did I come up with that rule? I guess it was sometime today. Or did I come up with it just a minute ago? Since the two of them aren't too bright, I decided to be easy on them, I guess. You are Mion's best friends, right? Don't you believe in her? Have you already made Mion into a murderer within yourselves? Why don't you try to protect the Mion within you? Why don't you try to believe your friend can't be a murderer? If you could believe until the very end, like Satoko did, you would have realized I wasn't Mion, your best friend, but just someone who looks like her. But if you can't, if you still believe that I'm Mion, then you're just like me. I killed the Satoshi-kun within me so easily, and you will do the same. You don't deserve to live. Back there's the prison. Is Shion there? You're not going to make it. Once we reach Shion's cell, your time is up. The demon will win. Shion? Is that Shion?
Kei-chan? Is that you, Kei-chan?
Keiichi ran to the cell.
Are you alright, Shion? Are you hurt? No. No.
Shion screamed. I was standing right behind Keiichi. It was time. My preparations to kill the boy she loved were complete. For her, this was going to be the worst possible torture. Calm down, Shion. Everything is over now. Everything. Keiichi tried to quell Shion's distress by talking to her in a calm voice. It was such a funny sight. Keiichi was the only one who had no idea what was going on.
Shion, how have you been? No more, please, no more. I don't want to see anyone else die. If you hate me, then just kill me already. I'm the one you hate most, right? Kill me, Kill me right now! Says... Calm down, Shion. It's all over now. It's going to be alright. So calm down. Relax. I won't kill you. No, I won't kill you just yet.
It's game over! I gave you enough chances. You cornered me quite well once, but that was it. You couldn't figure out that I'm not your best friend, Mion. You couldn't believe that Mion isn't a murderer.
Please stop! Don't kill Kei-chan! Kei-chan has nothing to do with this, does he? If you're going to kill someone, then kill me right now! I don't want anyone else to die! If you want to die that badly, then after I've killed this man, I'll take my time making mincemeat out of you. In accordance with the ancient rites, I'll do it slowly, starting with your extremities. I'll shave you down and mince you to bits. I had that mincing machine set up specifically for you, after all. Or would it be funnier if I were to mince up Kei-chan in front of you?
Hey, quit it already! What do you have to gain by scaring her at this point?
No! Kei-chan, run away!
Here you are, demon. Go ahead and take my soul. I'd been living my life to avenge Satoshi-kun, but that wasn't what he wanted from me. That was just for my own satisfaction. I couldn't even face Satoshi-kun. So, I'll bring this to an end in the way I want. The world became a total mess. Satoshi-kun hates me, and I hate myself too. I'm going to complete my revenge. I don't want anyone to sympathize with me. I won't pretend to be some tragic heroine either. I'm going to become a murderer that nobody could sympathize with. So please, grant a suitable final moment to me. A bluish-white flash filled the huge cave. Keiichi fell down like a doll. Shion reached out to him from the other side of the bars. She screamed at me not to kill Keiichi. Go ahead, cry and blame me. Don't even think of offering your forgiveness. I am the most rotten existence in this world. So please, grant me the worst possible ending. Shion begged me desperately to let Keiichi go. I simply abused her, slandered her, and disgraced her. The more Shion suffered, the deeper I'd fall into hell. It wasn't enough. It wasn't even close to deep enough. It wasn't deep enough to compensate for my sins. I dragged Keiichi to the table that I tried to put Satoko on, and restrained him there. Keiichi began to move sluggishly. The stun gun must have not worked too well on him.
Can you hear it, Shion? I'm going to get started now! Savor Kei-chan's fresh screams to your heart's content.
Oh. I guess this is that choice, huh? Well, here we are. So this is what goes to the, what if scenario? So this would, right? So that's what we'll go with first. At that time, I became aware of Keiichi's gaze. Give it a fucking rest. Keiichi's growl resounded from the pits of his stomach. What a delightful sound. It was like he wanted to rip me apart.
Awake at last, are we? I lied to you before, you know. About having wanted to give Shion the most miserable death of all, but locking her up because I hadn't thought of a good way yet. That was all a lie.
I smiled menacingly as I laid out the huge nails and hammer specially made for the nail table.
I'll kill her, but only after her soul drowns in the screams of the many people who died because of her. Wouldn't that be poetic? Who are you? Huh? I'm Mion. Shion Sonozaki. Did the fear drive you out of your mind?
No, you're not. There's no way you can be Shion Sonozaki! My hand stopped dead in its tracks. Kei-chan? Shit. I decided it'd be too late once we reached Shion's cell. So the name-guessing game is already over. Oh well, whatever. Bring it on. I'll listen to you. This is your last chance.
Oh yeah? Then if I'm not Mion, who am I?
Come on, Kei-chan. Guess who I am. Try and save Mion, the girl who fell in love with you. And then I heard it. I most definitely heard it. Keiichi's mouth trembled as he spoke the words. Yet his eyes shone with a strong conviction, and he spoke the truth. You're Shion, aren't you? Wow. You're right. You actually won. You're amazing, Kei-chan. A strange feeling fills my chest as I shiver. I had convinced myself there was no way he could guess. But he did, and I couldn't help feeling a bit surprised. This Keiichi had yet again pierced through my disguise. You aren't Mion. Give me back the Mion whom I was with until just now! Who are you? Huh? You aren't Mion, right? Huh? Like I said, I'm Mion. No, that's not it. That wasn't what I meant. You aren't Mion. Why do you think I'm not the older sister? I don't know. Just a feeling. In my mind, memories of the time Keiichi recognized me at the toy store had been revived. Yes. Even back then, Keiichi could tell that I wasn't my sister Shion. I had feigned composure and offered a comeback with a straight face, but on the inside, I was shook. We were both capable of becoming Mion or Shion, but because I was the real Mion and was only Shion legally on paper, reversing the roles was even more easier for me. Our tones of speech, quirks, and even our auras. We had both mastered each other's habits so perfectly, even our own parents were unable to tell us apart. In fact, wasn't that exceptionally sharp Rena not able to figure out I wasn't her best friend Mion after all, despite being so close? So why? Has this Keiichi actually seen through my disguise twice? Why do you think I'm not the older sister? My ears perked up, eager to hear the answer. Keiichi's reply was a soft murmur like an insect's whisper, as he gasped for breath and pain. His voice was so quiet, it was nearly inaudible, but I could almost recognize the words on his lips. Yes, just a feeling, he says. Wow. Yet again, it was just a feeling. Didn't he say the exact same thing to me, that time at the toy store? How nice, how nice. What a splendid answer. You'd think why my sister, of all people, fell in love with him? However, no. Rather, it was exactly because of this. Along with my raving madness, the blood that was simmering in my veins until just now rapidly began to turn chill and coagulate. If I were to describe it, it felt like stagnant, muddy water flowing through a gutter. Even now, it was all so hilarious I could fall over laughing, but I didn't smile. On the contrary, my face was vacant and austere, like a gnome mask of frigid ice. And then, the darkness seeped into the innermost depths of my mind, and I was already parting with my self-restraint as a human being. I reach out and touch Keiichi's hair, matted with sweat and caked with blood. Keiichi whips his head away at once in disgust, as if he were staving off a housefly, and glares at me defiantly. Don't touch me! You damn demon! Give her back! Give Mion back! Give me back my best friend, Mion! Having lost liberty over his whole body, he continued to howl and cry as if he were spewing blood. I was supposed to have sold my soul to the devil and become a demon, but faced with such a bitter rejection, I felt the crumbled remnants of my emotions stir within me. Munch, crunch, munch, crunch, munch, crunch. My throat begins to itch. The crooks of my elbows, my wrists, and every other joint in my body begins to tingle and prickle, and I feel irrationally restless. The more the restlessness and irritation piled up, the more the squalling, whimpering person beside me felt bothersome, revolting, so awful I could slaughter him right away. To be frank, until just now I had no intention of killing Keiichi. I was truly ready to spare at least his life, if he guessed the right answer. That was the rule I had decided upon. Okay, I'll admit it. Just like Shion, I had also fallen in love with Keiichi. He was incredibly silly and good-natured, unbelievably warm-hearted and gentle. Talking to him made me feel contented. Besides, I even sympathized with him. Unlike the lot I dealt with so far, Keiichi was indeed just a victim, caught up in my selfish revenge drama. Now that my revenge against the Sonozaki family was almost complete, I didn't mind saving him. That may sound too convenient, but perhaps the human side of me that was fond of Keiichi wanted to save him in order to seek his forgiveness for my actions. But I've changed my mind. Having witnessed Keiichi guess the right answer before my very eyes, my heart was suffused with a stinging, gaping, overpowering darkness, as if it were freezing over. Why? Why was Shion alone able to meet such a wonderful person? Satoshi-kun could only make a vague distinction between me and Shion. Satoshi-kun abandoned me and ran away. However, this Keiichi trusts Shion. He is defending Shion, whom he values as his best friend, by seeing through my lies. And as a result, he gave up on me. Detestable, maddening, despicable, enviable. So much so that I want to kill them. That's right. The moment he defended Shion, he became one of them. He's equally guilty. You low-life scum. I despise you. I despise you. I despise you. I despise you. I despise you, you fucking piece of shit!
Please stop! Don't kill him! Kei-chan, get out of here!
Munch, crunch, munch, crunch, munch, crunch. Ah, what a nuisance. Shion's screams coming from the corner of the chamber were enjoyable before, but now they felt unbearably noisy and pissed me off. How about I just get rid of Shion first? I wanted to kill her after she had the most exquisite taste of anguish and terror, but now I could barely suppress the indiscriminate urge to slaughter welling up within me. Keiichi was relentlessly yelling his protest towards me. His throat closed up eventually and he gasped for breath, hoarsely continuing to demand Mion's return.
Kei-chan, this may not be something pleasant to take to the grave with you, but you really seem to want to know, so I'll tell you just one thing. The demon had already been dwelling inside me for a long time. It had been gnawing at my heart, trying to spur me to violence, but I suppressed it with reasoning. The demon calmed down, and I convinced myself that it had disappeared. As it turns out, I was wrong. The demon never left me. It had just been asleep inside me.
Yes. When I learned about Satoshi-kun's disappearance, my ailing heart had crammed itself with rage to compensate for the despair. But that was the limit of my insanity. I would never have snapped. Time had healed me, and my memories of Satoshi-kun were neatly wrapped up and pushed into the back of my mind.
That demon had awoken again thanks to a certain small opportunity. What do you think that opportunity was?
It really was the smallest of the smallest things.
This might be a strange thing to hear from a demon, but you're the reason everything got so messed up.
A tear rolled down my cheek. That's right. Back then, if you hadn't given that doll to Mion, none of this would have happened.
You probably can't understand. I don't expect you to. But you see, after that, everything began to topple over one by one, like clattering dominoes, and it all got out of hand. It's normal you didn't realize because it was so small, but as the person to knock over the very first one, you were the cause of this tragedy.
Back then, if Keiichi hadn't shown any affection, Shion wouldn't have been overjoyed. She wouldn't have been overjoyed, and cheerfully boasted about him to me. What? What? Okay. As I was listening to her, I was reminded of Satoshi-kun. I became jealous of her for having someone she loved so close to her. It was a very small jealousy, but it had awoken the demon who was sleeping deep inside of me. Ah, okay, I see. I was like, how the fuck did that do anything to you? That's how. I guess I get it now. After that, I just let the demon take over. The demon fed upon the copious amounts of sadness I held for Satoshi-kun, and in return it committed heinous acts that Satoshi-kun himself would never be happy with, all in the name of avenging him. And now, the horrific events that had followed were inviting me to the realm of demons that had no return.
be, can it? I'm not surprised you weren't aware. Even so, you are without a doubt the cause of this, Kei-chan.
Back then, if you hadn't chosen to give the doll to Mion... Wait. Hold on, in this world he did give the doll to Mion? I'm confused. What? We could have arrived at a different future. No, that wasn't right. Wouldn't pinpointing Keiichi's small action as the beginning be the height of transferring blame? I was implying such a silly thing had awoken the demon inside me. Even without Keiichi's act, it would have awoken anyways. At the end of the day, it was all my fault. I didn't fight the demon. I allowed it to reside in my soul, and I readily offered it my heart. Keiichi didn't hide his tears. They were pouring down his cheeks. Maybe he was crying in my place, as I was not free to do so, having chosen to become a tearless demon. That is why I must go on as the demon. There was no room for human emotions or hesitation anymore. And then, munch crunch, munch crunch, munch crunch, snap. Oh, I can't voice that, so I'm not gonna try. Shion's wails rasping like silk tearing apart, along with my screams of ecstasy. The last thing I heard were those everlasting reverberations. Oh, jeez. Oh. Did she claw her throat out or something? The last thing she ever heard, huh? June 1983. A case of serial disappearances occurred in Hinamizawa Village, Shishibone City. The suspect is Shion Sonozaki. Allegedly, she abducted, imprisoned, and killed 4 Hinamizawa residents: Oryo Sonozaki, Kiichiro Kimiyoshi, Rika Furude, and Satoko Hojo, between June 19th and the 21st. Preliminary investigation into the incident was delayed at the time due to insufficient evidence, but by chance, the case was solved rather abruptly. On the morning of the 22nd, a patrol vehicle stationed outside the Sonozaki mansion heard screams from within, and personnel infiltrated the premises as an emergency measure. The suspect's missing elder sister, Mion Sonozaki, and 2 of her classmates, Keiichi Maebara and Reina Ryugu, were taken into custody. However, Keiichi Maebara, who had previously been lured into the crime scene, had sustained stabbed wounds perpetrated by the suspect. He was immediately transferred to an emergency unit, but they were diagnosed as a minor injury. Having been the one with the utmost opportunity to engage in conversation with the suspect until the very end, he will be subject to interrogation once he has recovered from the shock. Furthermore, holy small text. Furthermore, the apprehended suspect was found collapsed at a place approximately 2 meters away from where Keiichi Maebara was restrained, and sustained scratch wounds on her throat. She was also transferred to an emergency facility, but was pronounced dead at 13:48 on the 22nd. The official autopsy determines that the immediate cause of death was hemorrhagic shock due to excessive blood loss. Hair, pieces of skin, and blood of the 4 missing people, Oryo Sonozaki, Kiichiro Kimiyoshi, Rika Furude, and Satoko Hojo, were recovered from the hidden chamber that was discovered in the outbuilding basement of the Sonozaki family property, where they were supposedly killed. It was concluded that the victims were assaulted in that hidden chamber. The victims' bodies were discovered at the bottom of an old well, as per the testimony of the victim, Mion Sonozaki. In addition, investigations continue into any possible connection to the series of mysterious deaths in recent years, but no evidence of Shion Sonozaki's direct or indirect involvement has been found. There are still many obscurities to the motive behind the incident, and due to extreme non-cooperation from the Sonozaki family and residents of Hinamizawa, a large amount of time will be required to clarify matters on this front. The local police who are familiar with the region offer that this may have been an internal lynching incident, as punishment for sacrilegious acts carried out against Hinamizawa's religious beliefs. It has been established that the incident is unique and rooted in the regional community beliefs, and a cautious investigation has been ordered by the prefectural police. We expected to gain valuable hints from the missing person and the suspect's sister, Mion Sonozaki, who was under confinement for the longest time period. But it was observed that she had sustained severe mental trauma from the incident, and her inquiry has been postponed in favor of her psychological and physical recovery. According to her primary care physician, although her condition is fairly serious, there is a strong prospect of recovery, and she is at present undergoing rehabilitation with support from her close friends. Several weeks have passed since then. After that incident, I was rescued by Oishi-san and his team whom Rena had summoned. Whose perspective are we in? I had no other after effects aside from my consciousness that had been wiped white. If I were to have any at all, it would have to be the deep scars that had been left inside my heart. As I was being examined at the hospital, I was subjected to various queries from Oishi-san. I tried to answer him with whatever little I knew, but I had no idea if it met his expectations, and neither did I bear any responsibility to do so. Are we in Keiichi's, then? I would have to assume? From what I had heard, Shion had already lost too much blood by the time the police arrived. Good job. And she had stopped breathing. They urgently called for an ambulance and took her to the clinic, but there was barely any time for first aid, and she took her last breath. The silver lining was that Mion, who had been captive in her cell, was safe and taken into custody by the police. Yeah, we're in Keiichi's perspective then. Up until the moment I lost consciousness, I was afraid that Shion may fly into a rage and murder Mion, but I was just glad we had managed to avoid the worst case scenario. Only, when Mion was rescued, she was emaciated and had sustained severe psychological trauma. Apparently at the time of her rescue, she had been completely unable to respond to the police's questions. Right now, Mion is admitted at a large hospital in the vicinity and undergoing treatment for her psychological and physical injuries. In the beginning, when Rena and I went to visit, her eyes were downcast in desolation and she looked completely worn out. It was a horrible state to be in. But despite it all, as of late, she is on her way to recovery, finally well enough to show us a few smiles. Of course, we have been careful to not bring up Satoko or Rika-chan, and especially Shion. The police later conducted an on-site investigation at the Sonozaki house's underground storehouse, several days after the incident took place. Particularly, the well inside, which Satoko and Rika-chan's bodies were disposed of by Shion, was carefully surveyed by the prefectural forensic investigators, and true to Shion's testimony, the girls were discovered. Apparently, sediment had accumulated at the bottom of the well, and hence the discovery had taken several days. Along with Satoko and the other victims, skeletal remains that were several years, even several decades old were found, but it's not like I would know much about that. Even I was once summoned back to that place to assist with the crime scene investigation, but I didn't really help them find anything important. The Sonozaki family in Okinomiya, in other words, Mion and Shion's parents, came home every day several times along with many of their followers to formally apologize. And no matter how much my parents refused, they kept piling up banknotes worth millions of yen as compensation. Jesus. And once that money had piled up and reached a certain amount, on the same day, there came an envelope with a letter instead. I have no idea what was written in that letter, but my parents had discussed amongst themselves for 2 nights straight without consulting me, and decided we would move away from Hinamizawa. Oh.
I see. You're moving away, huh? When are you going?
The end of next month. In the end, I guess I wasn't even able to stay in Hinamizawa for even 6 months.
It's going to be lonely around here. Even Mii-chan would be sad, you know?
I'm sorry. I don't know if I should talk to Mion about this or not. I feel lost. Once Rena had heard me say that, she strongly insisted I had to tell her, no matter what.
I'm sure you may feel it's an awful thing to tell her, but I'm sure Mii-chan will be more hurt if you quietly disappear without letting her know. So, how about we go tell her together, okay?
Yeah, you're right. Hello. Oh, I see. So Kei-chan's going away from Hinamizawa, huh? Even though she had heard it from me, Mion whispered those words sadly, but she didn't seem that surprised. Surely she had mentally prepared herself for this outcome somewhere inside her heart. Sorry. But you know what? I plan on returning to Hinamizawa someday. I promise. It's alright. You don't have to force yourself. Even if you come back, there probably isn't anything good for you here.
Mii-chan?
Both Rena and I wanted to say it wasn't so. But after such a tragic incident, what verbal consolation could we offer that would help to Mion, who had suffered a much greater pain than we ever had? And so we just stood there, unable to say anything, just wallowing in silence.
Maybe I should just go to Tokyo as well.
Huh?
I heard I'll be discharged from the hospital next week, and there isn't anything much for me around here either. Even if it isn't Tokyo, I just want it to be somewhere far away, where nobody knows about me, nor Hinamizawa. I'm not really thinking about something convenient like starting over. I'm just exhausted. I just want to throw everything away.
Mion. Mion had been forced to carry the name of the next head of the Sonozaki family and the representative of the three great families, all due to a small misunderstanding. Despite feeling uncertain and weary about her unplanned responsibility, she had nevertheless been earnest and given her all to fulfill her duties. But to think, all of that had been concluded in such a manner. It was such a tremendous loss that it's almost a surprise she hasn't completely lost her mind. Who can really blame Mion anymore for making such a faint-hearted remark? And so I wanted to devote even a little bit of my remaining time here for her. That's right, Mion. You want to go out somewhere together?
Huh? Where?
You know, like a trip or something. I don't have a lot of time left here, so I thought we should at least recover some good memories. Tokyo's kind of far away. How about another big city, where we could try some good food and do some shopping? Well,
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that sounds wonderful. You should go, Mii-chan, okay?
But, wait, Rena, aren't you coming with us?
After hearing that, even I grow puzzled. Hadn't I suggested all three of us hang out together?
Well, I don't really want to be the third wheel, so you two should go out by yourselves. I'll be looking forward to souvenirs. Huh?
Boom, Mion blushes vigorously. I was slow to react because I didn't understand what Rena was getting at, but after seeing Mion's face imbued with color after a long time, my heartbeat grew faster for a moment. No, it wasn't what I implied when I suggested the idea, but depending on the point of view, wouldn't this be an invitation to a date? No, I'm probably getting way ahead of myself. Indeed, after seeing it that way, I was overcome with embarrassment, but there was no way I could back out after coming this far. This was all for Mion's sake. Pull yourself together, Keiichi Maebara.
Well, how about it, Mion?
Of course it'll be after getting permission from the doctor and your parents. I'll make sure you don't tire yourself out. So think about it, okay?
Okay. I gotcha. I'll, think about it, okay?
Oh, Mii-chan looks so cute today for a change. I'm so happy, I'm so happy.
What, is this gonna end well? This feels out of character for Higurashi. After that, we spent the day talking about harmless stuff that happened at school or in the neighborhood until it was evening. I felt like Mion had regained some of her spirit and acted a bit like she used to, so I was happy. After a few days, Mion had contacted me to say she was okay with my plan. And after spending a few more days to convince my folks and Mion's parents, we set off on a day's trip to a metropolis that had one of those bullet train stations. Oh, wowie.
Whoa! I haven't been here in a while, but it's grown so much.
As soon as she stepped out of the station, Mion set eyes on the scenery sprawling with people and cars. She shared her feelings and excitement as she looked on admiringly. Admiringly, that's the word. From what I heard, unless it's on very important business, Mion rarely gets to leave the village, let alone come out to a big city like this. Because of that, everything she saw looked fresh and fascinating to her, and she pranced around merrily, almost like a child.
Hey, Kei-chan! Where are we going after this?
Let's see. Judging by your preferences, how about there? The place I was pointing to, one that I had checked out in advance, was a massive, beautifully decorated game arcade that towered over a corner of the station's shopping square.
Phew. We sure had one hell of a time, huh? I had so much fun. It's been a long time since I played so many games at once.
As I sat down on the bench, Mion was gleefully draining her can of juice with a huge smile. That expression was unlike the gloomy one Mion had worn at the hospital. Next to me was the Mion I knew well. Earlier, we'd had a blast, vowing to conquer all the game consoles in the vicinity and made quite the ruckus, without caring about the people watching. Mion was enjoying herself playing on consoles she wasn't used to, and had gone on a rampage, laughing out loud, getting worked up, and challenging me to matches. Although, I couldn't help thinking about what-ifs as I was playing with her. About how much fun it would have been if only it weren't just the two of us, but also Rena, Satoko, and Rika-chan as well. I'm sure Mion must have been thinking the same thing, which was also why I outdid myself, making so much noise, trying to battle the loneliness, when I had realized. Hey, Mion.
What's up, Kei-chan?
With faint drops of sweat coating her forehead, Mion turned to face me with a broad smile. Mion's cheerfulness was most likely just her being considerate towards me for having brought her here. If that was so, then I needed to do the same for her. You told me it was your first time seeing those, but were you serious? You got 2 high scores on your first time playing. You're unbelievable.
Tisk tisk tisk, that was actually 4, Kei-chan. Those games are all about sense, intuition, and having great eyesight. It's all thanks to never neglecting my everyday discipline. More importantly, Kei-chan, shouldn't you be feeling ashamed of having your advantage used against you?
Hey, whoa, hold it right there! Remember how you distracted me by randomly pointing somewhere during air hockey and saying, "Look, what's that? That's against the rules." You're goddamn brutal.
Winner takes all, losers gotta fall, right?
For the time being, it's alright if her well-being is a front. All I hope for is that someday, this becomes real and she recovers her old cheerful self. Speaking of which, the game arcade's changed quite a bit, huh? A little while ago, I would have expected a dim place stinking of cigarettes, but I'm surprised I got to see so many people there with their families.
You're right. I guess hanging out like this once in a while is pretty fun too. Oh yeah, what time is it now?
It's around 5 p.m. now, I guess. I'm just gonna say now, I don't trust this is gonna end well. I imagine they'll go back and, oh, the disaster, haha, you know?
Oh, then it's not long before we have dinner, right? Where do you want to go before we leave?
How about fast food, like hamburgers or something?
Oh, sounds nice. Before we go, just excuse me for a bit.
Mion said that and stood up from the bench. I found it odd for a minute, but then I understood her intention and... They'll have toilets at the restaurants too, you know? Instead of a reply, I had empty cans thrown at me. Mion stuck her tongue out at me and left in a hurry. And after I watched her retreating figure, I plopped back down on the bench and looked up at the sky. The sky was pure blue and crystal clear, and it felt amazing. Everything seemed to be glowing, bathed in the brilliant summer sun. It was a good thing we came here. Mion also seemed to show signs of recovery. Oh yeah, then I might as well try asking her if she wants to come see me at Tokyo next time. It'd be cheaper if she stayed at our new place there, but I feel like our parents may be concerned for a while. We still needed some more time to go back to how it was. Then I'll have to look for a place she can stay at. After that, why hello there. Huh? Eh? Oh, hello. What? Huh? Oh, I do not trust this.
Hey, I'm so sorry, Kei-chan. The line for the toilet was really long. Look, I bought some drinks because I made you wait so long. Which one would you like?
Oh no.
My, Kei-chan. Don't tell me you fell asleep. Wow, this is pathetic. It's not very gentlemanly to doze off on a date with a girl, you know. Kei-chan? Seriously, how long are you gonna be out? Come on, wake up.
Well,
Kei-chan? Huh?
Oh boy. What? Bad end. What happened there? Someone said, "Why hello there," and then murdered him? The fuck? Okay, sure. That was a That was weirder than I expected it to be. I mean, it was kind of nice until it wasn't. Oh, well. Then I guess in that case, next episode we'll probably beat this chapter for real. We'll get the good end, or I guess the true end, because it isn't going to be a good end, that's for damn sure. But either way, that's going to be it for this episode, guys. If you liked it, then be sure to press the like button, and if you didn't like it, then fuck you too. Remember to subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and hit that notification bell to stay up to date on all my videos and stuff. And as always, my name is Godzi, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye!